The man with no words it began on a cold afternoon in Kyoto. The rain fell in soft sheets, painting the city in silver. Tourists bustled under umbrellas, snapping pictures of red gates and ancient temples. But at the edge of the city, away from the noise and bright lights, stood an old traditional in a ryokan known as Kazunokami. Its name meant the wind god's dwelling. Inside, the wooden floors creaked softly. Lanterns flickered. Time seemed slower there, as if the building refused to be modern. It held on to peace like a prayer. That was where he came. A tall man in a dark coat and faded jeans. His hair was shoulder length. His eyes held storms, and he spoke to no one. His name was Keanu, but no one at the ryokan knew that. To the staff, he was simply the foreign guest who checked in with a quiet nod and a strange request. No room service, no calls, no visitors, just quiet. He arrived with one small bag. No assistant, no fanfare. To the bellboy, he looked like a man running from something. To the receptionist, he looked like a shadow pretending to be human. Only one person looked at him differently. The silent concierge. His name was Hideo. He had worked at the ryokan for 27 years. He spoke very little, not because he couldn't, but because he believed silence revealed more truth than words ever could. When he saw the guest with the tired eyes and silent steps, he didn't ask questions. He simply bowed, handed him the room key, and waited for the story to unfold. Because Hideo knew, everyone brings their silence to Japan. Some carry grief, some carry guilt, others, like this man, carry both. On the second day, something strange happened. One of the staff knocked on the guest's door to bring fresh towels. There was no answer, but the door wasn't locked. Curious, the young housekeeper pushed it open. The man was sitting cross-legged on the tatami mat, eyes closed, hands resting on his knees. In front of him, an open notebook. Beside it, a photograph, faded, torn at the corner. The girl backed away quietly, but not before she saw his shoulders trembling. He was crying. Words spread among the staff. He's an actor, one said. He lost someone, another whispered. He's hiding from the world, a third claimed. And so, curiosity grew. Guests asked questions. Some even tried to speak to him, but he answered no one. He simply sat in the garden each morning, staring at the koi pond, then returned to his room. No demands. No complaints, only silence. On the fourth night, the ryokan held its annual moonlight tea ceremony. Guests from around the world gathered in the courtyard. Candles lined the stone paths. Cherry blossoms fluttered down like snow. It was the inn's most special event, but the man did not attend. He sat in the garden, away from the music and laughter. Hideo walked toward him, carrying 2 cups of tea. He placed one beside the man and sat down next to him. For a long time, neither spoke. Then the man said, "My name is Keanu." Hideo nodded slowly. "Hideo." They sipped their tea in silence. After a while, Keanu pulled something from his coat, a child's drawing. A stick figure holding hands with a taller one. Written in crayon beneath it were 4 words, "I miss you, Dad." Keanu stared at it like it was the last star in his sky. "My daughter," he whispered. Her name was Yumi. Hideo didn't ask what happened. He didn't need to. He only placed a hand on Keanu's shoulder and bowed his head. In that moment, Keanu broke. Not loudly. Just a quiet sob, like a tree creaking before it falls. The next morning, things changed. Keanu came down for breakfast. He nodded at the staff. He helped a tourist who had dropped their camera. Small things, quiet things. But the staff noticed. The world noticed. One guest whispered, "He's kind." Another said, "He helped me find my ring in the garden." A child waved at him. He waved back. Something was returning. Not all at once. But piece by piece. Then, late that night, a car arrived at the ryokan. Black tinted windows. 2 men stepped out, wearing suits. The staff tensed. They asked for room 5. They said, "We're here for Mr. Reeves." Keanu was in the courtyard, under the lantern light. Hideo met the men at the entrance. "He is not to be disturbed," Hideo said gently. The taller man frowned. "We work for his studio. Then come back when he is ready to speak." "We Have a schedule. Hideo raised his hand. In this place, time belongs to the soul. The men hesitated, but something in Hideo's calmness made them turn back. Keanu, watching from the shadows, bowed deeply to Hideo. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat at the koi pond, holding Yumi's drawing. Then, just before sunrise, he stood and walked into the front office. Amira, the young desk clerk, looked up, startled. He smiled for the first time. I want to extend my stay. Amira blinked. How long? Until I remember how to live again. And behind the front desk, Hideo bowed, his eyes soft. Then we will wait with you. The voice he never used at the morning after Keanu asked to extend his stay. The ryokan felt different. Birds chirped softly from the garden trees. The scent of steamed rice and miso soup floated through the air. Guests moved quietly, almost respectfully, as if something sacred had taken root overnight. And there he was. KeanuReeves, the man who had not spoken for days, now walked through the hallway with calm purpose, not as a celebrity, not as a ghost, but as someone beginning to wake from a long and painful sleep. Amira, the young receptionist, smiled as he passed. He nodded back. In the kitchen, the chef whispered, "He said thank you this morning." The staff blinked, not because they were shocked he could speak, but because of how softly he said it. It wasn't a voice for the world to hear, it was a voice for healing. Hideo, the silent concierge, watched quietly from the garden steps, folding a paper crane in his lap. Later that afternoon, a guest approached Keanu near the koi pond. She was American, young, nervous. Are you him? Keanu looked at her. She lowered her voice. KeanuReeves. He smiled gently. I was. Her eyebrows lifted. What does that mean? He pointed at the pond. That man died. A long time ago. I'm still figuring out who this one is. She didn't know what to say, but she understood enough to bow and walk away, respectful of the man trying to rebuild. From across the stones, Hideo watched. He folded another crane. That night, the ryokan hosted a calligraphy session. Long tables were set up with fresh brushes, rice paper, and black ink. Guests lined up to write their favorite words. Peace, strength, love. Keanu stood at the back. Unsure, Hideo motioned him forward. You don't speak, Keanu said gently. Why? Hideo dipped his brush in ink and wrote one word. Listen. Keanu chuckled softly. I like that. He sat beside him. For several minutes, neither moved. Then Keanu picked up a brush. He looked down at the blank paper. After a moment of stillness, he wrote two words. Begin again. Amira saw it from across the room. She felt a lump rise in her throat. One of the other guests asked, What does it mean? Keanu answered softly, It means you don't have to be who you were yesterday. The next morning, a package arrived at the front desk. Addressed to KeanuReeves, no return name. Only a Japanese postmark. Amira brought it to his room. He opened it slowly. Inside was a wooden box, hand-carved. Inside that box, a folded letter. He opened it carefully. It was written in Yumi's handwriting. Dear Dad, I know you are sad, but I want you to be happy. Please find the garden we talked about, the one with the fish and the big moon. I love you more than the stars. You're Yumi. Keanu sat down on the tatami mat, silent. Amira stepped forward. Is she? Keanu nodded. Gone. Amira didn't ask how. She simply sat across from him and said, She's still writing to you. He looked at the letter. How did it get here? Amira looked down. Maybe someone wanted you to see it. Someone who still believes. Love travels further than we think. Keanu clutched the letter to his heart. Later that day, he found Hideo by the garden, feeding the koi. He handed him the letter. Hideo read it slowly, then placed his hand over Keanu's. And then, for the first time since anyone at the ryokan could remember, Hideo spoke. His voice was deep, quiet, full of still water. My daughter's name was Eiko. Keanu looked up, stunned. She died in winter, Hideo said. 16 years ago. Keanu's mouth went dry. I'm sorry. She was 5, Hideo continued. She used to sing to the fish. Keanu felt tears rising. I stayed here to remember her, Hideo said, and to watch others remember the ones they lost. Keanu whispered, And have you? Hideo closed his eyes. I remember. But now I must learn to live too. They sat there, to fathers. Broken by time, stitched together by silence, days. Past. Keanu began helping the staff. Folding towels, lighting lanterns, walking guests to their rooms. He wasn't a guest anymore. He was family. One evening, a little boy staying at the ryokan got lost in the surrounding bamboo grove. Panic spread quickly. Staff searched everywhere. Then Hideo pointed to the west path. He'll go where the moon rises, he said calmly. Keanu ran toward the path, his heart pounding. Deep in the forest, he found the boy crying beneath a tall tree. Hey, Keanu whispered. It's okay. I was lost once too. He carried the boy back. The mother sobbed with relief. How did you know where to find him? She asked. Keanu glanced at Hideo. Someone once taught me how to listen. That night, Keanu and Hideo sat by the koi pond again. Keanu said, I don't think I can ever repay you. Hideo shook his head. Then don't. Just pass it forward. Keanu smiled. Will you teach me more? Hideo nodded. And from his sleeve, he handed Keanu a fresh sheet of rice paper and a single black brush. Write who you want to become. Keanu stared at the paper for a long time. Then he dipped the brush in ink. And began. The face he never expected. Wind shifted that morning. The sakura trees outside the ryokan danced more fiercely. Clouds rolled in low, covering the hills like thick breath. Something felt different. Keanu noticed it the moment he stepped out of his room. He had just begun watering the small bonsai trees along the east corridor, a task he had come to enjoy when Amira called his name softly. You have a visitor, she said, eyes uncertain. Keanu blinked. I don't get visitors. Amira nodded slowly. That's what I thought too. She handed him a sealed envelope. No name. Just one word on the back. Talia. Keanu froze. He hadn't heard that name in years. Talia was a producer. Not just any producer. She had worked on the film that had changed Keanu's career. She had seen him at his best and worst. And she had been there when Yumi was born and when Yumi was lost. She was also the only person who had ever told him the truth when he didn't want to hear it. He opened the envelope. I'm outside. You don't have to see me, but I'm not leaving until you do. His hands shook slightly. Amira looked at him gently. Do you want me to tell her to go? Keanu thought for a long moment. No. He whispered, I think it's time. Talia stood under the red maple tree, holding a small travel bag. She looked older, softer, but her eyes were still sharp. When Keanu approached, she didn't smile. She simply said, You disappeared. He nodded. I know. You didn't just walk away from Hollywood, Keanu, she said. You walked away from everyone who cared. He looked down. I didn't think anyone would understand. We didn't have to, she said. We just had to be there. Silence stretched between them. Then Talia pulled something from her bag. A photo. A recent one. Yumi. Smiling. Laughing. But it wasn't real. Technology. Talia said quietly. Some crazy fan made it. Said, this is what Yumi would look like at 10. It went viral for a few hours. Someone sent it to me. Keanu stared at the photo. A mix of heartbreak and wonder filled his face. You still keep things like this? He asked. I still care, she replied. They stood in silence again. Then he said, Why are you here? Talia took a breath. To give you this. She pulled out a small USB drive. Before Yumi, before she passed, you did an interview. One of your last. Raw, unscripted. You never let us release it. Keanu shook his head. It was too personal. Yes, Talia agreed. But it was beautiful. You spoke about grief, about pain, about how love keeps echoing even after the person is gone. And now, I think the world needs to hear it. He hesitated. Why? Talia stepped closer. Because there are people out there who feel the same way you did. Maybe still do. You disappeared to find peace. Now maybe you can help others find it too. Keanu looked away. Hideo stood quietly at a distance, folding another crane. Keanu finally said, I'm not ready. Talia smiled softly. I'm not asking you to be. I'm just leaving the choice in your hands. She placed the USB drive in his palm. When you're ready, she said, let it go. That night, Keanu sat with Hideo again. The USB drive sat between them on the bench. She wants me to share this, Keanu said, to let the world see my pain. Hideo didn't respond. Keanu asked, should I? Hideo finally said, when a storm passes, the ground is soaked, but it's also softer, ready for seeds. Keanu looked at the koi pond. So, plant something new. Hideo nodded. The next morning, Keanu stood in front of the old wooden board near the lobby where guests often pinned notes. Thank yous. Poems. He added a photo. The photo Yumi had drawn long ago, the stick figure, and the words, I miss you, Dad. He pinned it next to a fresh paper crane from Hideo. And beside it, he wrote 3 words, love still lives. Amira saw it. Her eyes filled with tears. You're ready, she whispered. Keanu looked at the photo. Maybe I'm just beginning. But later that day, something else happened. As he was returning from the bamboo grove, he found Talia sitting with Hideo. They were speaking in Japanese fluently. Keanu frowned. You speak Japanese? Talia turned, a strange look on her face. Not just speak, she said. I lived here, long ago. Keanu tilted his head. You never told me that. Talia nodded slowly, because I never thought it would matter. Keanu looked between them. Then Hideo stood, placed a hand on Talia's shoulder, and walked away. Keanu sat beside her. What did you talk about? He asked. Talia hesitated. You. What about me? About what it means to lose a child and survive. Keanu's breath caught. Hideo lost his daughter too, Talia added. But what you don't know is that she died because of a mistake at the hospital, one he couldn't fix. Keanu looked toward the garden, where Hideo now sat in stillness. He never told me that, he said. He doesn't tell many people, Talia replied. But he told me, and he wanted me to tell you this. She paused. Then repeated Hideo's words, when you forgive yourself, you will finally meet your daughter again. Keanu stared into the pond, the reflection of the sky trembling. And how do I forgive myself? He whispered. Talia took his hand. By choosing to live without forgetting. By loving what remains. The letter from her hand. Rain returned. Soft. At first, tapping the roof tiles of the ryokan like fingers searching for something lost. Guests stayed inside, sipping hot tea and watching the droplets streak the windows like gentle memories. The world felt slow again, as if holding its breath for what came next. Keanu sat alone in the meditation room. The USB drive Talia had given him sat on the floor beside him, unopened, untouched. He still wasn't ready. Not to relive those words, not to watch his past flicker across a screen, not to hear his own voice speaking the truth he had buried. Amira stepped in quietly, holding a thin white envelope. This came, she said softly. Keanu looked up. Another letter? Amira nodded, her hands trembling slightly. But this one is from Yumi's mother. He blinked slowly. My wife? He asked. Amira hesitated. No, from before her. His heart skipped. He had only spoken of Yumi's birth mother once to Hideo, quietly, shamefully. She was someone from his past, from a time before the spotlight, before the fame, before he knew how fragile love could be. Her name was Emi. They had met in Tokyo years ago. She was quiet, curious, kind. They were both young. They shared something beautiful, brief, and unforgettable. But they went their separate ways, until one day, years later, he received a call. She had given birth. The girl was his. Her name was Yumi. He remembered the panic, the fear, the disbelief. And then, the love. He adopted Yumi formally. Emi stepped away. She said she couldn't raise her. Not then. Not as a single mother in a city that would never forgive her for her choices. She asked him to raise Yumi with someone kind. And he did. He and Talia found a way. They gave Yumi a life of wonder and warmth. But now Emi was writing. Amira handed him the letter. Keanu opened it slowly, his hands shaking. Inside were only a few lines, written in neat, careful Japanese. I dreamed of her last night. Yumi, she, was standing in the rain, holding a red umbrella. She said, I forgive you, Mama. And then she said, go tell him the truth. So I am telling you now. I never walked away because I was weak. I walked away because I thought you were strong, but maybe we were both just scared. there is something you should know. Before she passed, Yumi wrote you another letter. She gave it to my mother, who promised to send it, but she never did. I found it. I am sending it now. Do what you need to do, but know this: she never blamed you, not once. She only ever loved you. The envelope trembled in Keanu's hands as he turned it upside down. A second, smaller piece of paper slid out. On it, in Yumi's childlike writing, "Dear Dad, I heard you crying last night. I wanted to come hug you, but the nurse said you needed rest. I know you miss me already. I miss you too. But don't be sad forever. Please smile again one day. Promise me you'll find the garden with the orange fish. Promise me you'll tell people you're okay. Even if you're not yet, I'll be in the moonlight every time you look up. I'll be the breeze that moves the trees. I'll be your forever girl." Your Yumi. Keanu didn't cry. Not this time. His eyes filled with something deeper. A kind of peace that sat quietly beside sorrow. A truth too big for words. Amira sat beside him, wiping her own tears. "She knew," Amira whispered. "She knew everything," Keanu said softly, "and she still loved me." That evening, Keanu walked into the garden with the letter in his hands. Hideo was sitting by the pond, feeding the koi. The lanterns glowed dim in the early night. Keanu sat beside him and handed over the letter. Hideo read it slowly, his eyes moving like falling leaves. When he finished, he looked up at the sky. "The garden with the orange fish," he said. "This is it." Keanu looked at the koi swirling beneath the water's surface. I think she led me here," he whispered. Hideo nodded. "And maybe now, she's waiting for your next move." Keanu stared at the letter. "I want to speak," he said. Hideo looked at him. "I want to show the world the interview," Keanu continued. "Not for fame, not for noise, but for Yumi, for everyone who loved and lost and couldn't say goodbye." Hideo smiled. "Then begin." That night, Keanu handed the USB drive to Talia. "Release it," he said. Talia's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "Yes," he nodded. "I owe it to her, and to myself." She hugged him, long and quiet. Amira watched from the steps, her hands folded, her eyes filled with pride. The next morning, the video went live. A simple title, KeanuReeves, The Interview. He never released it. Within hours, the internet exploded. Millions watched. Millions wept. In the interview, a younger Keanu sat in a room with no set, no lighting, just his eyes and his words. "Grief is not something you get over," he said. "It's something you carry, like a river inside your chest. Some days it's still, some days it floods, but you learn to swim, or you drown. My daughter taught me how to swim." Comments poured in, messages of love, stories of people who had lost someone and never felt seen until now. And deep in a ryokan in Kyoto, the man who had once walked in silent and broken now sat beside a koi pond. "Hold. Not fixed, not finished. But hold. Keanu stared at the sky that night. The stars gentle and forgiving. Amira brought him tea. "You did something brave," she said. "I only told the truth," he replied. "And that," she said, "is always the bravest thing." Hideo placed a final paper crane on the stone bench. "She would be proud of you," he said. Keanu looked at the crane. "No," he whispered. "She already was." The diary behind the wall ryokan was no longer silent, not in the way it had been when Keanu first arrived. Now it buzzed with quiet awe. Guests had watched the interview. Staff whispered with pride. Even strangers who had no idea who he was smiled as he passed. They didn't see a celebrity. They saw something else, something rare. A man who had let the world see his soul. Keanu, however, did not feel like a hero. He still woke up sometimes with a weight on his chest. He still carried Yumi's laughter in his bones and her final words in his dreams. But something was lighter now. Grief no longer sat in the room alone. It had been joined by something gentler. Hope. And yet, the story wasn't finished. One afternoon, as rain tapped gently against the windows, Hideo asked Keanu to help him in the old wing of the ryokan. "We're renovating," Hideo explained. "This part hasn't been touched in decades." They walked through a narrow hallway, the air filled with dust and memory. Faded scrolls hung on the walls. Creaking floorboards whispered under their feet. They entered a forgotten guest room with a cracked ceiling and peeling paper screens. This used to be a writing room, Hideo said. Many travelers left their thoughts here. Keanu ran his fingers along a dusty bookshelf. Behind it, something caught his eye. A small crack in the wall. Was this here before? He asked. Hideo frowned. No, they gently moved the shelf aside. The crack widened into a narrow gap. Keanu reached in and pulled out a small wooden box. Old, carved with symbols, wrapped in red thread. He opened it carefully. Inside was a leather-bound diary. The name on the first page, Emi Fujimoto. His breath caught. Emi, he whispered. Yumi's mother. Hideo stepped back. How did it get here? Keanu shook his head slowly. I don't know. The box also held a folded letter, brittle with age. He opened it with trembling hands. Dear whoever finds this, this is not a secret. It is a confession. Years ago, I stayed in this room. I had just given birth to a child no one knew about. A child I could not keep. I left her in the arms of a man I once loved. A man I knew would protect her better than I ever could. But I never forgot her. Not for a single day. I came here to write the truth. Not for me, but for her and for him. One day, if they are meant to heal, this book will find its way to them. Please, if you are reading this, deliver it. With faith, Keanu felt his knees weaken. He sat down on the wooden floor. The diary open in his lap. He turned the pages. Each one was filled with words meant for no one until now. Memories. Letters never sent. Moments of doubt. Moments of love. I saw him once in a magazine, Emi had written, holding Yumi's hand. She looked up at him like he hung the moon. And I wept. Not because I wasn't in the picture, but because she looked safe. I gave up being her mother, but not my love for her. And I pray he forgives me someday. Keanu closed the book, his heart both shattered and stitched all at once. She never stopped caring. He whispered. Hideo placed a hand on his shoulder. Love doesn't end. It just changes shape. That night, Keanu sat in the garden. He held the diary in one hand. In the other, Yumi's old drawing. Amira joined him, her expression soft. I read her letter again, she said. The one Yumi wrote. Keanu nodded. It's still in my room, beside her photo. Amira looked at the stars. Do you think she knew all this? I think, Keanu said. She knew more than all of us combined. Amira placed a folded note in his hand. What's this? He asked. Hideo gave it to me years ago. Said he would know when to pass it on. Keanu opened it. A single sentence in Yumi's handwriting. When Dad smiles again, tell him I see him. Keanu's heart burst open. He smiled through tears. She always knew. He whispered. The next morning, he returned to the old room. He placed the diary back into the box. Then added a new letter of his own. To the next person who feels broken, I came here as a shadow, but I leave as a father, as a man learning how to begin again. If you find this, know that healing isn't loud. It's quiet. It begins in silence. Keanu sealed the box and placed it back behind the wall, where it had waited all these years. Then he stood. And walked into the sun. On his final day at the ryokan, the entire staff gathered. They offered him a red paper umbrella for the journey ahead. Hideo said. Keanu bowed deeply. Thank you, he said, for giving me the space to remember who I am. Amira handed him a small bag. Inside were all the paper cranes Hideo had folded during his stay. What do I do with them? Keanu asked. Amira smiled. Wherever you go, leave one behind. Let others know that healing is possible. Keanu looked at Hideo. What will you do now? He asked. Hideo smiled. I will keep listening. And with that, Keanu Reeves walked away from the ryokan. Not to escape. But to begin again. Asterisk. The one who watched in silence. KeanuReeves walked away from the ryokan. With a red paper umbrella in his hand and a quiet fire in his heart, he didn't speak much during the train ride back to Tokyo. He sat by the window, watching cherry blossoms float by like memories returning home. In his bag were folded paper cranes, Yumi's drawing, Emi's diary, and one final letter from Hideo tucked carefully into the inside pocket of his coat. But just as the world began to open for him again, something unexpected waited at the end. Of the tracks. A woman, standing at the station platform. Wearing a pale green coat, with eyes that mirrored Yumi's. Keanu froze. His heart skipped. Emmy? He whispered. The woman stepped forward, but she shook her head. I'm not Emmy, she said quietly. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a photograph. A young girl standing in front of a classroom. CHALKBOARD. YUMI. Keanu single quotes as breath caught. Where did you get that? He asked. I was her teacher, the woman said. My name is Misaki. He stared, unsure whether to move closer or run. Why are you here? He asked. Misaki. I spoke softly. Because she made me promise. Keanu blinked. Promise what? Misaki opened her satchel and handed him a small, worn notebook. On the cover was a sticker of a rainbow. Keanu turned the pages. It was Yumi's handwriting. Poems, sketches, dreams. I want to visit a garden with orange fish. I want Dad to smile again. I want to leave something behind that helps someone else feel better. On the last page, in shaky letters, it read, Miss Misaki, if I don't wake up, please find my dad. Tell him I'm okay. Tell him to keep helping people. He's good at it. He just forgot. Keanu fell to his knees, notebook pressed to his chest. She never stopped believing. He whispered. Never, Misaki said. She talked about you every day. Tears streamed down his face. Why didn't I know? He asked. Misaki. I sat beside him on the bench. Because you were lost, but she knew you'd come back. He closed his eyes. Thank you, he said softly. She changed my life too, Misaki whispered. I almost quit teaching. But Yumi, she reminded me why I started. Keanu smiled gently. She always had that effect. They sat in silence, watching the crowd pass by. Over the next few days, Keanu stayed in Tokyo. He visited Yumi's old school, the library where she borrowed books, the park where she fed pigeons. At every stop, Misaki joined him, guiding him through the pieces of a little girl's quiet legacy. They found more notes in books. Little scribbles. Be kind even when it rains. Some people are quiet because they're listening. Don't give up yet. It's not the end. Each message was a seed she had planted. And now they were blooming. Keanu returned to the ryokan one last time, not as a guest, but as a messenger. He sat beside Hideo in the garden, unfolding Yumi's notebook. He showed him the notes. The sketches, the dreams. Hideo read each one, bowing his head in respect. She left a map. Hideo whispered. Keanu nodded. For anyone who's still lost. Amira joined them, setting down a small tray of tea. People are writing in, she said, after the video, after the interview. Thousands. Keanu looked up. What are they saying? That you helped them cry for the first time in years, that you made them feel seen. Keanu placed Yumi's notebook on the table. Let's build something, he said. Amira frowned. Like what? A place, maybe a website, a garden, a room in every hotel, where people can write what they can't say out loud, like Yumi did, like Emmy did, like I finally did. Hideo smiled. The garden of letters. Keanu looked at him. Yes, we'll start here. 1 month later, the first garden of letters opened at Kazunokami, inside a quiet room. Guests found a single desk, blank paper, and a wall where they could leave their messages. The first note on the wall was Yumi's. I miss you, Dad, but I know you'll find me in the stars. Soon, the walls filled. With pain. With hope. With healing. Tourists came not just to sleep but to remember. And sometimes, to begin again. Keanu stayed involved. He helped open more rooms in other ryokans, hospitals, shelters. He kept Yumi's notebook with him, always. He folded cranes with Hideo. He laughed with Amira. And sometimes, he sat with Misaki under the trees, watching the sky. She'd like this, he said one day. Misaki nodded. She's watching. And somewhere, far beyond clouds and light, a little girl smiled. Because the man who forgot how to live had remembered what mattered most. And the silent concierge, who listened, had helped the whole world here. Asterisk.